Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So this is Unity, Part 3, Mission, Chapter 49, Jenny. I waited by the servants' entrance in the gray dress of a worker, carrying a basket in my hands. The afternoon was cold and dull, and even though it was early spring, the back passages of the council building were quiet. Grandmother and Beth had warned as many slaves as they could about what was going to happen. From what I understood, they were enough to keep normal appearances, but the rest would head underground. With the council in closed session, there wasn't much movement around the building anyway. "Jenny?" said Beth in my earpiece. "Yes?" "They're coming." "Right," I acknowledged, and turned towards the door. It opened to a slave in a cook's uniform. "What do you want?" "I was told to bring these here." The slave narrowed his eyes. "What you got there?" "Oh, corn, beans, and squash. They're to die for." The slave nodded and rolled his eyes. "Well, come on in, then. Haven't got all day. I'll have to get one of the priests to pay you, though." "Yes, I understand." He was slightly off script, but that meant there was a priest in the kitchens. He waved me in, and I followed. He led me through the kitchen, where a priest was tasting a dish at one of the stoves with his back to us. The slave ushered me quickly through and down a hall. We walked for another minute, and he opened the door. "In here," he said. "Thanks," I said. "You can come get the basket in 10 minutes. He nodded, watching the door to the kitchen. "Might want to make it faster. He won't be long." "Right." I entered the room, which was really more of a closet, and dug out the box and a black dress from under the layer of vegetables. I changed into the black dress, then opened the box and pulled out the necklace of nanopickets, draping it across my chest. I glanced at the timer on the projection cube. I had exactly 30 minutes to get to the council chambers. I pocketed the projection cube and stood still for a moment, listening for any sounds in the hall. Hearing nothing, I activated the pickets. The cubes around my neck vibrated slightly. I could feel the hum of the picket's power on my chest. It made me smile. I opened the door of the closet and peeked out. "I'm ready," I said, and Beth acknowledged. "Good hunting, Jenny. Jackson will block the door in 25 minutes. Acknowledged, going silent. Understood. I took out the earpiece and threw it into the pile of rags where I had concealed the gray dress. I walked out into the hallway with all the airs of a New Harmony lady, as if I had every right to be in the slave's hallway. At the end of the hall, I went through another set of doors to the stairs that led to the council building's upper floors. The council chambers were 2 floors up, towards the front of the building. I waited in the shadows under the stairwell, listening. Hearing nothing, I slowly made my way up the stairs. At the second-floor landing, I stopped again, listening for anyone coming up the stairs, but couldn't hear anything. Picket 1, scan doorway. One of the pickets detached itself from the necklace and hovered next to the door. It came back, reattached itself, and gave 2 barely audible tones. Only 2 at this door. Almost too easy. But given the priesthood's arrogance, unsurprising. I cracked open the door and could see one of the guards less than a meter away. He turned toward the door. "Pickets." The pickets all detached from the necklace and hovered around me. Picket 1, kill 2 o'clock. It chirped, then suddenly the guard's throat was spilling blood. I heard the other guard come up on the side of me. Picket 3, kill 9 o'clock. The guard was dead before he could take another step. The pickets hovered around me like bloody, deadly insects as I stepped over the dead guard into the cleaner part of the hall. Picket 8, map, council chambers, begin recording and transmit. I programmed the picket with the map of the building and set it to begin transmitting to the survey satellite in orbit. The other pickets hovered over the necklace, moving with me as the recording picket hovered in front of me and moved down the hall. It took longer than I would have liked to get to the council chambers. The architects weren't stupid. The whole building was a maze. Servants I left alone, but any priests or guards became intimately acquainted with the pickets before they could announce my presence. I swept through the halls like an angel of death, surrounded by my bloody little silver bees. In the hall outside the chambers there were more guards. I pulled out the projection cube. 10 minutes. I was close enough to recognize several of the guards as the ones who had raped me in the convent. I stepped out into the hall, and the rapist turned towards me. "Who are you? No women allowed in the chamber hall." "Who am I?" I gave a small chuckle, which I'm sure didn't sound quite sane. "Who am I? Don't you recognize the woman you raped not so long ago? No? Then I'll tell you who I am." I grinned, a humorless smile that flashed too many teeth. "I am vengeance. I am here to deliver you to hell, where you belong. Pickets, kill." All the pickets around me, except for the one recording, chirped in acknowledgement. There was a buzzing sound, and then blood sprayed against the walls as the guards fell. I walked behind the pickets, getting blood and gore on my dress, but I didn't care. I smiled as the wave of death spread until there was nothing but silence. Finally, I was in front of the council chamber doors. I opened the double doors slowly and stepped over the threshold, closing them quietly. The edges of the room were dark. In the middle of the room was a large, brightly lit horseshoe-shaped table with all 7 of the council members seated at it. Mark's father was at the center of the horseshoe, with his brother beside him. The others I recognized from the ordination ritual. The men heard the door close, and their heads turned toward the noise. "Who are you? What are you doing here? This is a closed session," said a voice to the side of me. "Pickets 1 through 7, kill all except for those at the table," I whispered. The pickets chirped and obeyed. Bodies began to fall along the perimeter of the room. I steadily moved from the door into the lights around the table. The priests all turned towards me, and many of them gasped. The archpriest yelled, "Guards!" When no guards came, I could see fear on his face. "Good." I smiled a cold smile. I made my way to the open end of the horseshoe. "Pickets 1 through 7, mark," I said, in my calm, deadly voice. All 7 pickets, completely covered in gore, hovered in front of each council member, dripping on the papers in front of them. The priest with sense stood still. A couple of them tried to swat them away. "Pickets 2 and 4, damage," I said into the silence. Now the ones that tried to wave away the pickets were each missing a hand. They cried out as the blood sprayed on the table, and the rest finally stilled. I calmly walked to the head of the horseshoe, where the archpriest was. I pulled the projector out of my pocket and set it in front of him. I smiled. Not long now. "You? The one that was with the exile scum? What is this? I will have you executed," the archpriest screamed. "Like you executed your son? I don't think so." He glared at me. Father Cookson narrowed his eyes, with his hands under the table. I walked over to where he was sitting. "Father Cookson, I wouldn't bother. There's no one left to come. I made sure of that." The priest stared at me in shock and put his hands back on the table. I turned back to the archpriest for a moment, then said, "Projector on." A map of the star system appeared, with New Harmony delineated on it, and date stamps. 2 stars flared outside the system, and 2 circles in blue slowly made their way towards the planet. "I suppose I should explain this to you. It's really quite simple. Survey doesn't really take kindly to fanatics who bomb their ships. They've been watching you for a long time and don't really like you or your shitty ideas. This projection is showing you what happened a year ago when Survey started these novas. From what I understand, these weren't set off at full power. You're lucky they showed mercy for the innocents on your planet, since every living thing would be dead in a few minutes otherwise." I paced around the horseshoe while I explained their demise. "Those blue lines? That's 2 EMPs heading this way. Projector, live." The blue lines sped up to show them just about to reach New Harmony with a timer that said 3 minutes. "This wasn't my idea, to set the novas and come here, you know. But they sent me and Mark to give you one last choice. But you know what? I really don't give a shit about what Survey wants anymore. You don't deserve a choice. You don't negotiate with pedophiles, rapists, and racists. I walked around to one end of the table, stopping in front of the first counselor. I seem to remember I was too old for you. The man looked up at me, trying to say something. Picket 1, kill. The priest was decapitated. The picket returned, dripping to float near me. I stood in front of the next counselor. Ah, the priest of the clergy, head rapist and leader of new little tyrants and rapists. Did you enjoy watching me get screwed by your newest minions? Please don't kill me, he squeaked. I'm sorry. Really? Well, that's a first for you, isn't it? Tell it to your devil. I started to walk towards Father Cookson and then said, Picket 2, kill, heart shot. And the priest of clergy fell to the floor. The picket extricated itself from the body's chest cavity and rejoined the others. Chairs scraped on the other side of the table. The other priests tried to run away from the slaughter, but the pickets followed them. I sighed. Fuck it, I don't have time for this. Pickets 5, 6, 7, kill. The pickets dispatched all the rest with efficiency and returned floating around me. Father Cookson and the archpriest cried out, but were too terrified to move. I smiled. Now, you see, the only thing I want is vengeance and justice. The bonus is that Survey is also going to destroy your world, which I really think is the cherry on top of the sundae, isn't it? 2 points on the map flared, and a glowing light started to filter through the stained glass windows. The countdown timer showed 1 minute. Father Cookson seemed to find his voice. Destroy our world? What do you mean? You can't be serious. Oh, I am serious. As serious as you were when you made me kill my husband. I turned to Mark's father. Not that I really wanted you as my father-in-law, especially after what Mark had told me about you, nor after what I've seen you do. The timestamp showed 30 seconds left, and the blue lines were close to new harmony. Let me illuminate things for you. Like I said, Survey doesn't take kindly to your brand of leadership. In 30 seconds, the EMPs from said novas will hit this planet, rendering all your technology useless. I stood in front of the archpriest. I'd say most of the people here would survive, except for your clergy, obviously, but not you. You will be executed for your crimes against humanity. In fact, this is being broadcast right now. The whole planet knows that they will be free of your tyranny, free from your rapists, free from your priests, free from your slavers. The archpriest glared at me. There are others to take our place. You cannot destroy the order we have created here. I laughed. Since I seem to have killed most of your upwardly mobile priests in the convent, I highly doubt that. That was you? He asked, wide-eyed. I just smiled wider. You bitch. I shook my head. Wow, how original. I gave a fake yawn. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Father Cookson reach into his robe pocket. Oh, no, Father Cookson, let's not do that. Picket 3, gun hand. There was a chirp, and the picket severed his arm, which fell to the floor. I saw the archpriest start to move from the corner of my eye. All but Picket 3 mark and pin 2 o'clock. The man stared at me in disbelief and anger as the other pickets surrounded him. That's better. Wouldn't want you to miss the show, archpriest, especially when I bring the light of knowledge to this planet. At that moment, a bright light exploded through the windows, illuminating the room with bright colors of stained glass. The priests shielded their eyes, and I just closed mine. The electric lights in the hall popped and went out. When I opened my eyes, I could still see the archpriest surrounded by the pickets, but Father Cookson was no longer at the table. He was trying to make a break for the door. Jay! The archpriest yelled. Oh, no, this won't do. I laughed and jumped over the table towards him. You can't run away, Father Cookson. I'm not done with you yet. I tackled the man, bringing him down hard and flipping him onto his back. I sat on him and looked him in the eyes as the brightness from the colored windows made him squint. He muttered something. What, you don't want me to kill you? The man who made me kill my crucified husband in front of thousands of people? It was necessary, he croaked. Necessary? I stared at him, uncaring about the fear in his eyes. No, Mark's death wasn't necessary, you son of a bitch, but yours certainly is. I began to punch the man in the face over and over until there was nothing left but bloody pulp. I could hear him gasping for breath. Picket 2, a side kill, I said, as I stood up, panting. The picket slammed in the side of the man's body. I kept looking into his eyes until I could hear him take his last breath. I finally breathed out. The picket exited Cookson's body and moved to hover over my shoulder as I turned and walked back over to where the archpriest was still being pinned down. Jumping on the table, I smelled urine. You're insane, he gasped. I am what you made me, asshole. Pickets, move, I said, then kicked him in the chest, toppling him in his chair to the floor. I shoved the chair out of the way and turned the man onto his back. I put my boot onto his neck. Now let's see. Picket 1 and 2, feet. This is for all those you have trampled on. A pair of chirps followed by screaming from the archpriest as both feet were cut off. Picket 3 and 4, hands. This is for all the slaves you've beaten. The archpriest screamed again and started begging for his life. I ignored him. And this is for all the women and slaves you've raped. Picket 5, genitalia. The man screamed again. His voice was starting to break. I bet that didn't feel good, did it? Now you know what it feels like, don't you? Now you know what it's like to be nothing but meat for a power you can't control. Please, stop, the man croaked. What was that? You want me to stop doing this to you? How many people begged you to stop, Father Aloysius Cookson? How many women begged at our altars to stop you raping them? How many slaves begged you to stop beating them or killing them? How many of your queer sons did you kill off or send to space and left for dead? Oh no, archpriest, you brought this on yourself. Picket 6, throat, vocal cords. I moved my foot and the picket sliced open the man's throat. Whatever he wanted to say came out as a wet gurgle. I grabbed him by the front of his robes, looking into his wide, wild eyes, blood from his throat dripping on my hands. And now, you asshole, I will execute you for Mark, the son you left to die, then made me crucify. Picket 7, kill. And the final picket slammed in the priest's head. He let out a breath, then was silent. I let go. I stood up, and my body seemed to move backwards by itself. I backed into the table. I looked around at all the bodies shining in the bright, colored light. Moving to the cleanest and most shaded corner of the room, facing the doors to the chamber, I fell to my knees. There's no more thought, no more rage, no more anger, just numbness. I looked at the colored blocks of light, and through the brightness a figure appeared. She was dressed in white, her dark skin like night against the light, and there were broken chains hanging from her wrists and ankles. The Black Mother knelt before me. You are done, child. You have fulfilled your promise to me, and I thank you. Will things really change? I asked. Yes. Rest now, my champion, and grieve. She put her hand on my head, then faded back into the light. The room returned to the bright colors of the stained glass. Suddenly all the loss, pain, and rage of the last year and the past came rushing into my mind. I screamed into the echoing chamber. Chapter 50. Marcia. The countdown clock on my desk had run out about 3 weeks ago. It wouldn't be long now till we knew what had happened on New Harmony. It wasn't just the countdown that Hades had set up for us that had run out. I could feel things coming to a head in the Senate. The attacks from the so-called Outer Colony terrorists had increased, and rumor had it that the Shipping Guild was going to move to give the President emergency powers, giving him complete control of fleet to take care of the terrorists. I knew that if Doherty got that power, he'd never give it up, and the new Harmonists would take over. In the weeks after Jack left, I threw myself into work. When I was in the office, I was organizing evidence. And when I was in the Senate chamber, I was paying attention to the new harmonists, seeing which way the wind was blowing. It wasn't blowing in a good direction, and more legislation was grudgingly passed in the name of security. At night, when I was alone in my suite, I drank to keep the nightmares away. Oscar stuck to my side like glue, except at night. While I appreciated his presence and the safety he offered, it was getting a little irritating. "Don't you ever sleep?" I asked him one afternoon as I was working in my office. "Yes, ma'am." I stared at him for a moment. "Jack told you to keep a close eye on me." "Yes, ma'am." I sighed. "Okay, Oscar, I can't get out of my office without you knowing, so will you please stay in the reception area, at the very least? Having you stare at me while I work is weird." I hated to pull rank on him, and he frowned at me the way Jack would, but he just nodded and left the room. I breathed a sigh of relief and sat at my desk. Looking at the blank countdown timer, I wondered if Jenny was all right. No, I corrected myself, she wasn't all right, but I knew she was alive, or at least she was a week ago. If I was honest with myself, I wasn't all right either, but what I had to do wasn't sane. Maybe it was sane by AI standards, all quite right and logical, but I didn't think they understood the toll that their chess playing took on us mere humans. But the first had been right. The new harmonists had to be stopped, and humans had to do it. They understood the big picture much better than any human would. I thought about getting a drink from the dispenser. I stared it down. No, I told myself, I can't do it now. "How can you do this sober?" a voice in my head asked. "Go away," I told the voice. "I need to do my work first." I buried my head in paperwork again until Kyler ran in. "Marcia, there's a priority message from Hades." Before I could answer, Ebo and Lulu burst into the room carrying a large silver box. "Hey, boss," Ebo said with a wicked grin on his face. "We have a present for you." I held up my hand. "One at a time." Ebo. Ebo gave a cough. "Right, we have a present for you. We think it will come in handy." He lifted the box onto the table, which I recognized as a cryo box. I pressed the button to open it, and the top half of the box split in half. I looked inside. "Fuck," I said, my eyes wide, but a grin slowly crept on my face. Inside the box, neatly nestled on dark fabric, was the head of Director Miller. In his mouth was an old-fashioned thumb drive attached to a small chain. I wondered why there was so little blood in the box, and found myself admiring the surgical precision of the cut. I stared at the head, then at Ebo and Lulu, and back again. "Fuck," I repeated, and quickly closed the box. I gave a cough. Yes, very useful, thank you. Please, hang on to this? We'll need it soon. And, is that thumb drive what I think it is? Is it the key?" Ebo nodded and winked. "Yep, it's the encryption key. We checked. He had it on his person." "I see. And the rest of said person?" Lulu's eyes lit up and she gave an evil-looking grin. "Marcia, there are some things you really don't want to know." "Right." I pushed the box back towards Ebo and Lulu, not following up even though I kind of really did want to know. Ebo took it. "I want you two to take that key and send the data to Hades. Have him see if it's the right key for any of the messages that we had sent to him earlier. Get that data together and get the packets for the senators ready to go right away." I looked at the blank timer again. "We'll be giving our little presentation as soon as possible." Kyler's tablet chimed again, and we all jumped. They checked their messages and blanched. "Marcia, it's the priority message from Hades." "Let me see it." Kyler sent it to my tablet. "To Ambassador Brooks at Unity Hub from Hades. Nuclear detonation in the capital of New York Colony 3 weeks ago. Sun Tzu agents reported heavy New Harmonist influence with extremist groups in the city. There was heavy traffic between Unity Hub and the Kozalesi family in the month before the detonation. Sending data. News should be reaching Unity Hub proper within the hour." The others waited, wondering what the message was about. I was too shocked to speak for a moment, then said, "Gods have mercy." I put my head in my hands for a moment, then looked at Kyler. They shared the message with the others. All three looked from their tablets, then to me in shock. I didn't trust my staff to stand. Nuclear weapons? Nuclear bombs had been outlawed since the attack on New York on Earth and the disappearance of Trinity Station. They were that desperate for power? Kyler's tablet chirped again. Marcia, we just got a notice. There will be an emergency Senate session first thing in the morning, Kyler said. It will be a vote on the emergency powers bill. They all looked at me. I felt my insides go cold. It's time. Be ready to go by morning. Lulu, Evo, get all the data together and ready. Let's also figure out how to present my gift. We'll need Oscar in here, too. I paused. Let's get to work, people. Our clock's just run out. They all nodded and went to their various tasks. I sent a message to Hades. To Hades from Ambassador Brooks. Clock has run out at Unity Hub. Send data from New Harmony as soon as it arrives. We'll be returning to you immediately after the session tomorrow. We'll probably come in hot. From Hades to Ambassador Brooks. Understood. We await your return. It was going to be a long night. When I finally got to my suite, I didn't bother with food, went straight to the rum. There was a grumble from Papa, but I ignored it. I won't sleep otherwise, I told myself. I knew it was a lie, but I didn't care anymore. I brought the small bottle and the glass to bed, set the alarm on my tablet, downed a couple of drinks, and laid down. The chime of my tablet woke me. I reached out from under my covers, slapping my hand on the end table until I found the tablet. I heard something thud on the floor and then sleepily said, "Fuck." The tablet kept chiming. I focused on the time, and the tablet said it was 0500. What the hell? I rolled on my side, then sat up. Lights low, I said. There was a new message from Hades marked urgent. I opened it. To Ambassador Brooks from Hades. Mission on New Harmony complete. Video attached. I opened the video. I watched as Jenny tore through the guards and the counselors, executing the ruling council as the EMP hit New Harmony. When she pinned down Father Cookson and said that Mark had been crucified, my blood went cold. I watched her execute the last two priests with a mix of grief, disgust, and satisfaction. When the video finished, I put down the tablet, went to the shower, setting it as cold as I could stand. As I stood under the flow, the tears finally came, for Jenny, for Mark, for Malcolm, for the hundreds of nameless victims of the New Harmonists. There was no doubt anymore, no fear. The Black Mother's mission was clear, and I would see it done. I turned on the hot water once I finished crying, then washed until I felt clean again. I got out of the shower and dressed myself carefully. Everyone had already put their personal belongings in the Demon the night before, so I had only one outfit to choose from. I went to my office and watched the light come on in the gardens until the others came. When they saw me there, early, dressed in white, they were confused. Then I showed them the new video of New Harmony. No one said anything. No one had to. The walk to the Senate chamber felt like an eternity. Oscar was a silent presence behind me, with a near-feral Kyler on the one side and Lulu on the other gleefully carrying the cryo box. Oscar, Lulu, and Kyler were all dressed in black, and we made a stir as we walked through the plaza. My mind felt strangely clear, with no doubt anymore. This had to be done, or more people would be killed, more people raped, more people enslaved. No, their time had come. We stopped at the chamber doors where two guards stood. For a moment, they looked like they weren't going to let me in. I stared at them. Fear crept into their eyes, and they moved aside and opened the door. Ready? I asked quietly. Kyler smiled, though there was no joy in their eyes. I've been ready for this for a long time, Marcia. Let's get these bastards. Same, Marcia, said Lulu. They're done. Oscar didn't say anything. I nodded, adjusted the heavy necklace of the nanopickets around my neck, and opened the doors. We were late enough to be noticed as we walked to the survey box, but still early enough that the debate on the emergency presidential powers measure hadn't started yet. A few heads turned to look at us, but then quickly turned their attention to the president when I met their eyes. A few did a double take, but looked away quickly. I sat down at the desk. Black Mother, give me strength, I prayed. I am here, daughter, she said. I let out a breath and let her in. I could feel her presence in my body. I stayed standing, pressing the speak button on my tablet. Denied, came the response. I sighed and stared at the president. He ignored me. I will now open up the floor for debate on the presidential powers measure before us, said Doherty. I recognize Senator Desplaines from the Shipping Guild. The senator stood. I recognized him as one of the loyal sons. Thank you, Mr. President. I will be blunt. We cannot allow these terrorist actions to continue from the outer colonies. They've already bombed New York colony with a nuclear bomb. Who knows how long it will take the colony to recover? I say we give the President immediate discretionary powers to contain this threat. The room erupted into shouting. All the loyal sons in the room tried to outshout any opposition. I sent the request again. Denied. I kept staring at Doherty. I knew he could see me. He didn't look in my direction, but his secretary did. The secretary gave me an arrogant grin. My anger flared. The president rapped his gavel several times before the room settled down. I recognize the senator from New York colony. I am ashamed to see the divisiveness of this body, the man shouted. It was our colony that got hit with a nuclear weapon, wiping out nearly half the capital with it. These terrorists need to be stopped, and governing by committee is not going to work. We need decisive leadership, and the president can give us that. You're fooling yourselves if you don't think this won't happen on another colony. The man sat down. Another of the senators yelled, but consensus has worked for nearly 300 years. Why should we abandon it now? The fleet admiral stood up. Because governing by committee is too slow, he yelled. If you want Unity Hub to get hit next, go ahead and keep your damned consensus. The room erupted again. I sent a third request. Denied. I turned to Kyler and Lulu and whispered, I think they suspect. Fuck 'em, said Lulu. I agreed. Kyler actually chuckled quietly. The three of us stepped out into the aisle, looking like avenging angels. Oscar fell in behind us. We walked halfway down the aisle when I gave the command. Pickets, hover. The small cubes of my necklace detached themselves from the chain and hovered like angry wasps around our heads. As we walked towards the president's dais, a hush fell over the chamber. I stopped a few paces from the president and gestured to Lulu, who swayed up the dais, using all of her sexual appeal. The chamber stilled, and all I could hear was the slight buzzing from the nanopickets. I was sure that she gave them a beatific, mischievous smile as she opened the box and pulled out the head of UI Director Miller. She blew the president a kiss and returned to my side. There were audible gasps. I stepped forward one more step. Now that I have your attention, gentlemen, I request permission to speak. The president looked at the head with horror and disgust. What is the meaning of this? Guards! No guards came. Thank you, Ebo, I said in my head, knowing that he and the Musashi detachment had taken out the guards already. Someone get security here this instant, Doherty yelled, fear in his eyes. Several of the Fleet Admiral's staff started to emerge from their Senate box. Pickets, mark, I commanded, and the swarm spread out to hover over the heads of a third of the senators and their staff, all men. I would stand down, gentlemen, I said in a calm, deadly voice. These pickets are set to kill when I command them to. The Admiral glared at me as an aide tapped his shoulder. He looked up to see a picket floating above him. When he looked back, I could see fear in his eyes. Good, I thought, and smiled. Senators, you have been lied to by this administration. While it is true that it was outer colony terrorists who bombed New York colony, the real instigators aren't the colonists, but these men who are sitting beside you, who have a picket over their heads. Some of you on the Intelligence Committee may have heard of UI occasionally taking in refugees from a planet called New Harmony. Well, New Harmony has also been exporting men, called the Loyal Sons, to infiltrate Unity over decades in order to assert their idea of orderly society on us godless heathens. Doherty stood up. Ambassador, you have no proof of this, and it doesn't explain the murder of Director Miller. He motioned to the fleet admiral. Would your men kindly take Ambassador Brooks into custody? Picket, Admiral, face, I ordered, and the picket hovering over the admiral suddenly moved in front of the man's shocked face. The nano-picket now had a small but wickedly sharp knife sticking out of it. The admiral and his staff froze. Proof! Ah, yes. I lifted my tablet and sent a video to all those assembled, and also projected it in front of me. It was the video of the UI director and several of the senators ritually beating and then lynching my brother. This is a New Harmony ritual to bring in new white men from Unity into the ranks of the Loyal Sons. This particular ritual took place not too long ago here on Unity Hub. The man they are beating is UI agent Malcolm Brooks, my brother, one of Miller's own agents who dared to confront him. My voice cracked as I said the last sentence, but I somehow maintained composure as I saw the men beating Malcolm into literal pulp again. I heard the senators gasp in shock around me as the men in the video became more and more violent. When they hung him, I could hear some of the senators retching. The video finished. There have also been slave auctions at underground parties. I sent another video from my tablet showing several of the marked senators bidding at the underground slave market. As you can see, nearly all the people lined up for sale are people of color, and if you run facial recognition, you'll find that all of them have been reported missing. They don't account for all the missing person reports, as the others who have been reported missing are all non-binary, transgender, or queer people. You see, the New Harmonists espouse the values that humans from Earth left behind several hundred years ago. Bigotry, homophobia, transphobia, racism, slavery, religious fundamentalism, and white supremacy. They think it's fun to kill those who they think are deviant. We have other proof that will be transmitted to the Senate once I and my staff have safely left Unity Hub. Kyler tapped me on the shoulder and handed me a second tablet. I gave them the first one. Thank you, Kyler, I said, and turned back to the president. I have one more video to present to you, Mr. President. I took another step forward. Survey has been keeping an eye on the New Harmonists for a long time, and last year's bombing of the Survey ship Lightbringer was the last straw. I think this video will explain Survey's response. I projected the video from the tablet. There was horror on the faces of the New Harmonists as we watched Jenny confront and decimate the ruling council of New Harmony. I fully understood the insanity that drove Jenny to methodically execute all 7 of the ruling priests. I was hovering on that edge, too. As you can see, gentlemen, you no longer have anyone to report back to, nor a home waiting for you. I felt the Black Mother rising in me. Never doubt that Survey could have done a lot worse. The bombs that sent the EMP were only a quarter of the strength that they could have been, which was 1,000 times stronger than the bomb on New York Colony. Survey is giving you a choice. You either resign and leave your positions in Unity, or you will be eliminated. All of you. We will not allow you to destroy humanity for an ideology that should have been left in the distant past. Doherty was shaking. His face was white, and I could see that he was trying to think of something, anything, to escape. Before he could say anything, though, a movement came from behind him. His secretary, Timothy, moved in front of the president and started to sing. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war. He stepped forward, coming towards me, then stopped at the foot of the dais. As the other loyal sons joined in the song, the priest began to kick at his leg. Marcia, Kyler said behind me. I see it, I said. Timothy, Pickett, kill. The singing suddenly stopped as the aide's head rolled to the floor, and his body fell. Doherty went white, then red. None of the other loyal sons moved. How dare you, guards! He yelled again, but still no one moved. Why are you doing this? I stepped forward onto the dais and stood in front of him, looking him in the eyes. The Black Mother came forward and took over. Why? I said calmly. I'm doing this for all the Jennies you've raped, the Marks you've killed, and the Malcolms you've lynched. I'm doing this for all the brown girls and boys you've beaten for just being brown. I'm doing this for all the men you've brainwashed into thinking they were superior. I'm doing this because you made me do it, Doherty. I could see fear and anger battling within him. He opened and closed his mouth several times before he said in a low voice, "You can't kill us all, you bitch," he said. Into the deepening silence, there were a few audible gasps. Pure rage coursed through me. "May the ancestors damn you all to hell!" I heard myself yelling, but it felt as if my own soul was distant. The Black Mother had come for them, and I was her instrument. "All pickets kill!" There were wet thudding sounds, and blood sprayed in all directions, spattering my white dress with grisly red decoration. There was a ringing silence. I turned slowly to see that all the loyal sons in the Senate were now dead on the Senate floor. A smile came to my face. Kyler and Lulu were watching, wide-eyed, but they stayed where they were. I addressed those who were left with a preternatural calm. "It seems, for those of you left, that you have a big mess to clean up," I said. The Black Mother was satisfied, and as I watched the scene from the back of my mind, I too felt some satisfaction. "Pickets, return," and the silver cubes returned to the chain around my neck like bloody jewels. "It is finished," said the Black Mother, and her spirit left my body. I started to stumble off the dais. Kyler and Lulu ran up, grabbed me by the arms, and led me out of the chamber as fast as they could. I could hear Oscar following behind. The screaming didn't start until the soldier closed the doors behind us. Fleet security caught up with us halfway to the launch bay where Eba was waiting in the Demon for us. "Halt!" the lead guard said, but blanched, taking in my bloody clothes and the pickets. Kyler shook their head. "You should just let us pass, friend," they said. "You are under arrest by order of Deputy Admiral Arroyos of Unity Fleet for murder and staging a coup." "I don't think so," Lulu said. "Oscar, if you please, my hands are full." I was grateful that one of us could think straight. "Yes, ma'am." And the warrior started to carve a bloody path towards the launch bay. The smarter soldiers fled, and soon the hallway was empty. Oscar wiped his sword on his robes, sheathed it, and we all started running before more fleet could be sent. We made it to the bay, where Ebo was waiting for us. He waved us into the Demon. "Hurry up!" We ran the last few meters and stumbled through the airlock, which he slammed shut behind us. "Hop into the gel tank, folks. We need to hit 6G in order to outrun the fleet ships." We all crammed into the full tanks, and Ebo hit the engines. "Send the data, Ebo, to the senators and the press," I shouted above the engine noise. Evo gave me a thumbs up from the cockpit. He pushed a few buttons and yelled, "Done!" And it was then that I finally relaxed and let go of the tight grip I had kept on my emotions. Lulu and Kyler held me in the tank as I screamed out all my grief and rage with Oscar as silent witness. At one point, Ebo joined us in the tank and pushed something cool to my neck. I finally stopped screaming as the world faded away. Part 4, Epilogue. Chapter 51. Ray. We deployed just outside the capital. The streets were in chaos, with slaves and workers running through the streets. I'd seen some pikes with heads on them as we entered the city. The air was hot, and the light from the novas was brighter than any other sun I had ever seen. We had to turn the sun protection on our goggles to maximum. When we reached the council building, I searched for the building's doors. The only thing that mattered to me was that Jenny had gone into the council chambers alone, according to our contacts, and hadn't come out yet. I had to find her. I sent Kenneth and a few other soldiers from my unit with drones to guard the perimeter of the building. The rest of us went inside. Unlike the chaos outside, the council house was eerily quiet and far cooler. Most of the corridors were empty, only lit from the windows, as all the electrics had been rendered useless. We finally reached the hall that led to the chambers. Every few meters there was a body, and by the way they were lying still, some with square-shaped holes in them, I knew who had killed them. It looked like a war zone. The door to the chambers had been barred from the outside with the random array of furniture from some of the side receiving rooms. We shoved the heavy desks and chairs aside, then opened the doors. Yohei went in first and scanned the room, eventually yelling, clear, but holy shit. I followed the rest of the squad into a scene of utter carnage. Jenny was huddled on her knees near one wall, surrounded by hovering, gore-encrusted nano pickets in the glow of the colored glass. She was breathing heavily, staring straight ahead, eyes unseeing. One of the soldiers began to check the bodies, but it was pretty obvious that no one in that room, save Jenny, would move again. I waved Yohei over. "Yohei," I said quietly, "go out into the hall and call quietly for the medical shuttle. Take the others with you. I don't think she's all that responsive right now, but take it slow. No sudden moves or sounds. Warn the medics when they get here, too." The man nodded. Right. Then he used his comms to quietly and slowly get the rest of the squad out of the chamber. They eyed Jenny on their way out with awe, respect, and not a little bit of fear. I couldn't blame them. She did, after all, just bring down the government of a whole planet by herself. When the soldiers left the room, I slung my gun over my shoulder and slowly, deliberately, made my way to stand in front of Jenny. I knelt down in front of her. The other woman's eyes were wide and dilated in shock. I just knelt there for a moment, then said, in a gentle voice, "Jenny?" She blinked, and her eyes seemed to focus on me. "Ray?" "Yes, Jenny, I'm here. We came in after the EMP." "Oh," she said. She looked around the room. "I killed them?" she asked quietly. "You did," I replied. "I finished the mission." I nodded. "Yes, you did." "I hope Mark knows," she said. I was confused. "I don't understand. Why wouldn't he know? Where is he? Didn't he help you with this?" I asked. She shook her head and let out a small, hysterical laugh. There were tears coming down her face. "No." "Why not?" I asked, although I had a bad feeling I knew what she was going to tell me. "He's dead, Ray. Months ago. They took us from the house, tortured us. They crucified him on a stage, then took my hands and forced me to shoot him." Her voice was flat. "Fuck," I said. I knew this planet was fucked up, but this was insane. I could see the self-blame, grief, and anger plainly in Jenny's face. "I killed them all, Ray. I executed these bastards." I nodded again. "You did. And you freed the planet in the process." She shook her head. "I don't care about that. I executed Mark's father and uncle. It was more merciful than they deserved," she said. "Ray, why am I not happy? Shouldn't I be happy now?" I gently took her hands. "No, Jenny, you don't have to be happy about this. This isn't happy business." Jenny just looked at me, confused, and I thought, not quite sane. Before I could say anything else, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps enter the chamber. I turned my head to see a middle-aged man with slightly graying hair and the stride of a warrior come into the chamber. I didn't know who it was, but he used Musashi warrior hand signals to tell me to fall back. I released Jenny's hands and moved over to the side where I could keep an eye on the door. The man knelt next to Jenny on the floor where I had been. "Jenny? Jenny, it's Jack," he said. Now things made sense. I recognized the name from what Jenny and Mark had told me about their time on the failed station. If I remembered right, he saved her from New Harmony agents on a Unity station. She always spoke highly of him, and I had a feeling that if anyone could get through to her, he could. "Jack?" she asked, blinking again. "Is it really you?" "Yes, it's me. I'm here." The wild look Sunny had vanished, and she just collapsed into his arms, sobbing. "I know, Jenny, I know," he murmured into her hair, patting her head gently. They stayed in their embrace until Jenny cried herself out, Jack seeming not to care about the gore on her dress. Through the open door, I could see other soldiers and medical staff peeking in from time to time. One of the medics came in quietly, carrying a set of scrubs, and put them next to Jack. Jack gently let go of Jenny and coaxed her out of the gore-encrusted dress and into fresh clothes. She shrugged and did what she was told. Jack stepped a bit away, standing between her and the door. Yohei brought a case for the pickets and the holo projector, called the pickets with a remote, and put them away. He gave the case to one of the guards, who quietly left. Yohei then went to the door, speaking quietly to someone outside of it. After a few moments, he turned to me and tapped his wrist. I nodded. I went over to the older man. "We need to go," I said to Jack, while Jenny finished changing. He turned again to Jenny, who was now in clean scrubs. "Jenny, it's time to go now. You're done here, and it's time to go home." "Home? What home? I don't have a home anymore," Jenny's raspy voice said. It broke my heart. "You always have a home with me and Marcia, Jenny, for as long as you need. It's time to put down your sword and rest." With the last line, something about Jack changed suddenly, and for a moment he was Jack, but something more. Then he looked at me. I felt that the presence knew exactly who I was in my soul. I opened my mouth to ask, but the presence shook their head. I nodded, even though I made a mental note to ask him about it later. Suddenly there was a rumble in the building, and Yohei was now signaling urgently for us to leave. I acknowledged and said, "Folks, we have to go." Jack nodded. The presence gone. "Come on, Jenny." The woman nodded and got to her feet. She wobbled a bit, but Jack held her up. I came up alongside her and supported her on the other side. We made our way back through the maze of corridors and down the stairs, through the kitchens, to the shuttle waiting behind the building. Jenny didn't resist as we brought her along. "Stop!" said a voice as we reached the shuttle pad. The three of us turned as a unit, squinting in the bright light. I let Jack hold on to Jenny as I put up my weapon. A dark-skinned young woman was pointing a survey pistol at us from under an awning, with several other dark-skinned people also with weapons. She saw Jenny, and finally, and gave a cry. "Jenny, did you do it?" she asked, putting down the pistol. She started forward towards the other woman, and I put myself between them. "It's okay, Ray," Jenny said, looking towards the voice and shading her eyes. There seemed to be a little more sanity in her voice now. "She's a friend." Jenny disengaged herself from Jack and walked over to the other woman. "Yes, Beth, it's done. I kept my promise to you and Grandmother and the Black Mother," she said to the other woman in a flat voice. Beth widened her eyes and then turned to some of the people behind her. "Tom, Harriet, go to the council chambers and confirm." She turned back to Jenny. "Who are these people?" "These are my friends from Survey. They're here to take me home. But there will be Survey and Unity people to come and help you out as the Nova waves subside. You can definitely trust the Survey people. Just be careful with the Unity people, though. The loyal sons are still there." Jack walked over next to Jenny. "We're still working on Unity. Marcia's taking care of the ones in power right now. We haven't got all of them yet, but we're working on it." Jenny nodded, turning to clutch at Jack's arm. Jack caught her before she could fall over. "Can't you stay here? You're a hero," Beth said. I noticed that Tom and Harriet had come back, confirming what we had already seen in the council chambers. A sense of awe rippled through the crowd. Jenny shook her head. Beth tried to say something, but Jenny let go of Jack again and threw her arms around the woman, hugging her fiercely. "I'll miss you, Beth. Thank you for everything. I'm no hero. I just took out the trash. Take care of Grandmother and Kane, would you? Tell Grandmother—" Jenny paused. "Just tell her I said thanks." Beth nodded in her shoulder. "I will," she said. Jenny let go of Beth and turned back to Jack. "Get me the fuck out of here?" The man nodded. They turned and walked into the shuttle. Beth started forward and called out, "But Jenny!" But I again put myself between Beth and the retreating soldiers. "Let her go, Beth," I said in my most commanding voice. "But she's a warrior and she's done her job. She needs time to heal. You," I said, taking in the crowd, "on the other hand, have a lot of work to do." Beth looked at me, opened her mouth, and closed it again. She looked at the people behind her, then nodded. "Take care of her?" she asked. "I will. We will." "Will she ever come back?" I shook my head. Probably not. Beth looked sad. She'll be remembered as our liberator. I'll make sure of it. I nodded, saluted the woman, and got into the shuttle. Jack and Jenny were already strapped in. Jenny leaned her head back, eyes closed. There was still blood on her face and hair. The rest of my team got in, closed the door, and instructed the pilot to take off. The coolness of the shuttle was a relief. I'm no hero, Jenny said again as I sat next to her. You will be to these people, I said. You changed the course of their whole planet. You freed them from oppression. Jenny shook her head and stayed silent for a few minutes. Ray? Yes, Jenny? Come home with me for a while? I missed you. I was surprised, and my heart seemed to skip a beat. Sure. I have to clear the time off with Musashi, but yeah, sure. I leaned over to look at Jack. You mind another house guest, sir? As long as you don't call me sir ever again, then you're very welcome to come. We're at the Survey Ambassadorial Station at Unity Hub. I smiled. Thanks. As we climbed through the atmosphere, I knew in my heart that I would go wherever Jenny went, if only to help erase the pain that New Harmony had put on her face. Hades. To Musashi from Hades. Mission successful. Assets en route. Request defensive backup. Unity fleet in pursuit of assets. To Hades from Musashi. En route. ETA 48 hours. To Musashi from Hades. Unity fleet ETA 4 hours. Jumping to the secondary rendezvous point. Inform Jack Kirby. Ambassador will need assistance. To Hades from Musashi. Understood. Rerouting. Syslog. Begin human readable archive and recording. Hades, sensors are showing 2 demons coming in hot, said my commander. Yes, Commander. They will both need medical assistance. When they board, I will be locking down the station for jump. Please inform the crew. Understood. The commander closed their eyes for a moment. I never understood why they needed to do so in order to access their enhancements. I assumed it was an affectation of their humanity. Their voice rang through the station. All personnel, prepare for jump as soon as the ambassador and her team are on board. Medical teams to demon bays. They activated the audible alarms. So many physical signals. Humans are so limited. Commander, there are Unity fleet ships coming in behind them. I also predict out-system ships will be called in. I see them, Hades. The in-system ships will take some time, but the out-system ones could be here in a few minutes. I take it that's the reason for the jump? Affirmative. Right. The human let out a long breath. So, we can assume the ambassador had to take them down. They frowned, and not in the happy fun way. That's a strange expression, Commander, but accurate. Spooling jump drives. Musashi has been informed. My brother will meet us at the secondary rendezvous point. Understood. I calculated our coordinates, assisted the medical team in routing lifts to the landing bay, and released 100,000 nanopickets. The fleet scout ship was 8 minutes behind the demons. I understood to some degree what humans call frustration. Humans have to move so slowly that I get frustrated waiting for them to do the tasks I gave them. Even enhanced humans, like my commander, can only move so fast. I know they felt they moved much faster in emergencies, but for me, human time was an eternity. I felt the demons come in within range, and took over navigational control. Welcome back, Ambassador, I said. No response. Hades, we had to sedate the ambassador, said Ebo, the Sun Tzu agent. Is the ambassador injured? I asked. Not physically, he replied. Understood. Medical staff en route to the launch bay. Prepare for jump. There was no answer, but I didn't expect one. I appreciated Sun Tzu's humans. They were always most efficient. I hailed the second demon. I didn't expect an answer from them either. That particular demon did not have acceleration tanks. The crew would most likely be unconscious. I took control of both demons and docked them. As the second demon was secured, the fleet scout entered my space. I immediately swarmed the nanopickets. Commander? I see the idiot, Hades. Open a channel. The commander frowned and said, Survey Ambassadorial Station to Fleet Scout Ship. You have entered Survey Sovereign Space without permission. Please state your business. This is Acting Fleet Admiral Arroyos, replied the fleet ship. You will hand over Marcia Brooks and her staff who are wanted for the assassination of Unity government officials in an attempted coup. The commander shook their head. You understand, Admiral, that by treaty we do not extradite any Survey citizens into Unity custody, and that you cannot board our station. I don't give a damn about treaties when your ambassador just murdered 1/3 of the Unity government. Admiral, you risk severing ties with Unity if you continue in this manner, the commander replied. The Admiral started to repeat her lack of concern for Survey-Unity relations. I had had enough. Excuse me, Admiral. You will have been sent data by now to confirm the ambassador's actions were justified. If you cannot abide by the data, then we will take other measures to ensure the safety of our citizens. Who is this? The Admiral shouted. I ordered a picket through their shuttle bay door mechanisms. The channel was still open. Admiral, hull breach in the shuttle bay. Something small has gone through the hull and through our shuttle bay door mechanisms. We can't open the doors. One of the bridge crew yelled. Humans seem to yell a lot on military vessels for some reason. The Admiral started to yell again, and I cut the channel. Prepare for jumps. Jumps? Asked the commander. Yes, Commander. They are charging weapons. Shit, they said, and buckled themselves into the nearest bridge chair and alerted the rest of the station. I jumped out of the way of the ship's weapons, then opened a channel to the scout again. You will refrain from firing on this station, Admiral. Who is this? Roared the Admiral, louder this time. This is Hades, the AI in charge of the station, and its inhabitants. You will not fire again. If you attempt to do so, I will defend myself. You will leave, or you will be destroyed. An AI? Let me talk to the commander. I refuse to talk to some computer program to spout nonsense. You can't have weapons by treaty. If I had a body like Hef, I would have rolled my eyes. Admiral, they are not weapons. They are tools. Is Unity education so poor that their admirals do not understand K equals half mv squared? I say again, leave now, or be destroyed. Instead of a response, several Unity fleet cruisers jumped from out-system, weapons hot. I jumped out of their weapons range again. What the hell? I thought this was just a station. You have jump engines? The Admiral said on the open channel. The scout ship jumped towards our position. We are Survey, Admiral, I said. We do as we please. We have a treaty, the Admiral shouted. Yes, but the treaty does not allow for extradition of Survey citizens, or for you to attack any Survey station, or board any Survey vessel or station without explicit permission. If you do not back down, I will destroy your vessel. You will hand over Marcia Brooks. She was a criminal before she became a Survey citizen. The Admiral continued in this vein for several minutes. Then the scout ship locked weapons on me again. I let out an audible sigh for my commander to hear. My commander frowned. You did warn her, they said. I did, several times. I then said on the open channel, Very well, Admiral. Consider cordial Unity and Survey relations officially severed. I cut the channel before the Admiral could reply and instructed the nanopickets to swarm the ship. I jumped out of the system as the nanopickets hit the scout engines. Syslog, end recording. 2. The first, from Hades. Unity response as predicted, Father. Proceeding to the secondary rendezvous point. See attached log and recording. 2. Hades, from the first. How unfortunate. Come home when the other assets are transferred from Musashi. I will suspend planetary surveys for Unity and instruct Unity citizens to begin transferring to their homeworlds unless they want to stay with us. Humans can be such fools. The end. So the dedication for this book is as follows. This book is for my father, Sergeant First Class, U.S. Army retired Alfred Dean Pond, 173rd Airborne Brigade, Separate, who served in Vietnam May 1965 to May 1966, and Freddie Gianelli, USMC, in memoriam, who also served in Vietnam, and for all soldiers, past, present, and future, wherever they have served, may you find peace wherever you can. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revginapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.